TikTok is not playing, but time is running out. We are just 5 months away from the United States ban on TikTok passed into law by Congress earlier this year. And TikTok and the Department of Justice have been going back and forth, battling it out in the U.S. Court of Appeals over whether or not the ban is even constitutional. TikTok says it's not for several reasons, and the Department of Justice says it is for several reasons. And late last night, TikTok dropped this 37-page brief to the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, D.C., blasting every single argument the Department of Justice recently filed, and I told you all about in this video. The main takeaway, TikTok says, the government's submissions to this court make its strategy clear. Invoke national security to carve out new exceptions to constitutional safeguards. TikTok's brief uses the words wrong, misunderstand, inaccurate, mistakes, errors, misleading, and unaware at least 50 times in this document to describe the DOJ's arguments. So here's an example. The Department of Justice said to the court with its full chest that TikTok needs to be banned because it is a national security threat because its parent company ByteDance is based in China. Now, for the record, there is no publicly available evidence of what exactly that national security threat is. The government's brief includes about 20 pages of redactions, which we assume is that classified evidence, but publicly, we don't know what it is. And TikTok says even they don't know what it is because the government won't share it with them either. And the U.S. government says because TikTok is that national security threat, the government has every right to ban the platform. Further, DOJ says TikTok has misapplied the First Amendment, saying the Constitution does not guarantee the right to communicate one's views at all times and places or in any manner that may be desired. Well, in this brief, TikTok basically says that's a heaping pile of garbage on a lot of levels. The brief says Congress and the U.S. government are evoking national security concerns with absolutely no evidence, so they can hide the true reason why Congress decided TikTok needs to be sold or banned in this country on January 19th. TikTok says the reality is the government just doesn't like the content on the platform. And TikTok says that's not a reason to trample on the First Amendment rights of the 170 million American users and the rights of the company itself. TikTok says Congress may not silence a U.S. company's speech because it wants to block content that Congress deems propaganda. And the government repeatedly admits it has no evidence that China ever manipulated the content Americans see on TikTok. No precedent supports the government's dramatic rewriting of what counts as protected speech. TikTok Inc., a U.S. company, is not stripped of First Amendment protections because it's ultimately owned by ByteDance, a Cayman-incorporated holding company. Does the government seriously believe, for example, that Politico, owned by a German company, has no First Amendment rights? The government cites no evidence of this supposed Chinese control, and its contention is flatly wrong. The recommendation engine is in the United States, controlled by an American company and safeguarded by Oracle. And it goes on and on like this in this brief for every single argument the government is making. The bottom line for me and you is TikTok wants the U.S. Appeals Court to either throw this law out altogether because it's unconstitutional, or if the court decides to hear what the government has to say, then at least put the ban on hold while this case continues to play out. Oral arguments are scheduled for September 16th, so if you want to read this brief from TikTok for yourself, I'll email it out to you tonight in my Newsgirl News Roundup email, so make sure you sign yourself up.